Bitcoin is designed to be the world reserve asset or the world reserve currency, whatever you want to call it. It's going to take up all of the functions of money. Because the base layer is so difficult to manipulate, it's impossible to defraud the system, to take Bitcoin that's not yours, to create new Bitcoin that shouldn't exist, and all of the other problems that come with a system that's centralized, where it is easy to manipulate. In this video, I want to go into depth about why it's so important that Bitcoin's entire ledger is intact. Unlike a lot of other cryptocurrencies where they have missing transactions, they have missing blocks, they have missing ledgers, Bitcoin's legitimacy can't be questioned. You can't say that somebody is doing some kind of fraud on Bitcoin because all of the records are there. You can confirm them for yourself. I'm going to just start off with a very simple definition of what accounting is. Don't worry, this isn't going to be very boring. I'll go into the fun stuff later on. But accounting is the process of recording financial transactions pertaining to a business, which includes summarizing, analyzing, and reporting these transactions to oversight agencies, regulators, and tax collection entities. So with Bitcoin, you basically have the biggest accounting system in the entire world. Everybody can account for Bitcoin's transactions. So anybody in the world can audit Bitcoin. Anyone in the world can confirm that the transactions on Bitcoin are legitimate because they can all access the blockchain. Anyone can have a record of the blockchain on their computer. All it requires is a 1 terabyte hard drive, which you could probably get for $100 today. You can go through every single transaction that's ever happened, ever. You can see here, 2009, January 3rd at 1:15 p.m. This first transaction was created. So there was a record of all of the transactions that were created. You can see it here. You can go through, you can see every single transaction that happened. Now, I'm not saying that cryptocurrencies that don't have complete ledgers are a scam. That's not what I'm saying. But I want you to think about why a cryptocurrency wouldn't have a complete ledger. Why wouldn't the people who created that cryptocurrency, who started that cryptocurrency, why wouldn't they want to keep a complete record of all transactions on that ledger? If you have to understand that with a cryptocurrency, even Bitcoin, it can be created out of nothing, right? You can create it, literally, you can create it out of nothing. You have to put in some computing power, some energy. But if you have Bitcoin and I have no way of confirming that it's real, you could have literally created it out of nothing. The way that Bitcoin is confirmed to be real is you can see from the ledger that every single transaction has an origination point. You can confirm on this ledger that every single Bitcoin that you've received has a Coinbase transaction related to it. So the Coinbase transaction is where new Bitcoin is created. Over time, Bitcoin is created block by block. These blocks are created every 10 minutes. Basically, there are computers that are almost like contract services for Bitcoin. They're providing security to Bitcoin and they're getting a reward for doing so. So you can see here, the reward right now is 3.125 Bitcoin. The number is here. So if you subtract 0.017, the total fees from the subsidy plus fees, you get 3.125 Bitcoin. This is the reward that people are getting right now for creating a block. So for putting their energy, their time, their effort towards the Bitcoin network. This is the reward that they're getting plus transaction fees. So new Bitcoin is created as a reward to keep miners providing security to the Bitcoin network. The miners do a lot of work. They use energy to create this Bitcoin, to create these blocks on the blockchain. They do a ton of research. They make sure that they don't get scammed themselves. So with Bitcoin, this is like the literal meaning of proof of work. This ledger is proof that work has been done to create Bitcoin. This ledger gives you a timestamp for when a certain Bitcoin was created, and you can confirm with every single other person on earth who has a copy of this ledger that that production of that Bitcoin was real. So if you have the Bitcoin blockchain on your computer, you can confirm whether the production of any Bitcoin is real. So if I wanted to send you Bitcoin, you can confirm that at some point that Bitcoin was created. Whoever created that Bitcoin had to put in time, effort, energy to create it, to create a block. They had to use their computer to hash a result that the Bitcoin network wanted, and then they were able to create whichever block it is that they created. So if we go back to, let's say, block 654,654. Just a random number that I put in. I just typed in random numbers. If we go to block 654,654, we can see here Lubian.com. This is a miner. They received 8.912 Bitcoin for creating that block. They received 6.25 Bitcoin as a block reward, the block subsidy. This is the subsidy that the network is giving to miners to create the blocks. This is the minimum reward that they'll get. And then they also got transaction fees. So the transaction fees were 2.662 Bitcoin at this time, and the block subsidy and fees were 8.912 Bitcoin. So the block subsidy was 6.25 Bitcoin. So the minimum amount of money that you'll get, the minimum amount of Bitcoin that you'll get for creating a block at this time was the block subsidy. And again, this record is proof. This record has timestamps to prove when that Bitcoin was created. Every single block here will have a Coinbase transaction. Okay, so now that I've told you why Bitcoin is the best accounting system in the world, because you can all confirm the transactions that happened. You can all see, anyone can see which transactions happened when. You can do all of that. A blockchain is an accounting system because it records all of the transactions that happened, and the chain of custody for every coin that was created on that blockchain is available to everybody on Earth. If you can prove that a coin was created on the blockchain, then you know it's real. But if you can't prove that a coin was created on the blockchain, if you can't prove that it was a legitimate Coinbase transaction with Bitcoin, then how do you know that it was real? How do you know that it was created with the right amount of proof of work? How do you know that it was legitimately created? How do you know that it was actually produced using proof of work and all of the requirements that we have to create Bitcoin? If you have a blockchain where they don't have an entire record of the transactions that were done when the Bitcoin was created or the other cryptocurrency was created, that's a sign of fraud. So I just asked Google quickly, can deleted transactions from a ledger be signs of accounting fraud? It may not be intentional. I'm not saying that it's intentional, but if you have a cryptocurrency that you're promoting and you're talking about and it doesn't have an entire ledger, then how do you know that there was no fraud? We can see here. Yes, deleted transactions from a ledger can be a red flag for accounting fraud. While legitimate reasons for deletion may exist, the act of deleting transactions without proper authorization or documentation can indicate an attempt to conceal fraudulent activity or manipulate financial records. Here's why: concealment of errors or fraud, intentional misrepresentation, manipulation of records. Important considerations: audit trails. Reputable accounting systems maintain audit trails that record all changes to transactions, including deletions. In summary, while not all deleted transactions indicate fraud, it is a serious red flag that warrants further investigation by auditors or internal control personnel to determine the reason for deletion and whether it was part of a fraudulent scheme. One of my friends is looking into a cryptocurrency that I don't personally like. I stick to Bitcoin only, and he told me to look into it a little bit deeper. So I asked him, what happened with all of the transactions on this cryptocurrency that were missing? So the cryptocurrency is Kaspa. It looks like 75% were recovered, 25% were missing. And he actually spoke about this post here. A common FUD for CASP is that there are missing transactions for the first 6 months of the ledger. Here are the facts. 100% of all the data has been recovered of anything after either February 10th or October 2nd, 2022. Kaspa launched on November 2021. 75% of all the data has been recovered on anything in between launch and either, again, February 10th, 2022 or October 2nd, 2022. Either way, that's either 6 months of missing transactions where 75% have been recovered, or that's 12 months of missing transactions. They say that it's perfectly fine because you can still see the Genesis block, but how do you know what happened between the Genesis block and either October 2nd, 2022 or February 10th, 2022? How do you know what happened in between these two periods? Between November 2021, when the coin was created, and October 2nd or February 10th, 2022. While 25% remain missing, there's sufficient data to make this a total non-issue. Move on, fudders. So what fudders are is people spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Is it FUD Is it fear, uncertainty, and doubt to ask for a record of the creation of all of the Kaspa, all of the money that you're using, that you're supposed to use as the world reserve currency? Is it FUD? Is it really people spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt when they're asking for confirmations of when this coin was created, where the record of transactions is? And somebody actually quoted a tweet from I think he's the head researcher of Kaspa, and all of this is fine. It's fine. But one thing that really stood out to me here was actually two things. Two things that stood out to me here. Number one, not running an archival node from day one might have been a bit short sighted, but frankly, there was so much to do post launch that it got sidelined, mainly because we knew that it was not crucial for the security or integrity of the network. So it wasn't highly prioritized. So having a full ledger, a record of all the transactions that happened on this system, isn't their priority? Do you really think that the world is going to use this as money if having a record of transactions isn't their priority? If avoiding accounting fraud or ensuring that there isn't accounting fraud, if that isn't their priority, then what is? Is their priority to continue creating blocks? Is that what it is? Is it to continue generating transaction fees? And then the next part here, the ledger data is mostly not very interesting. I really don't understand what most users expect to find there. If I created a cryptocurrency and I wanted to commit fraud on it, this is what I would say. This is what I would tell you. No, 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 don't worry about it. It's not that interesting. You don't have to see. If I wanted to hide fraud from business partners, I'd tell them, no, you don't need to see what happened with the business. You don't need to see the bank statements. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You're only asking because you want to make sure that the aesthetics are there. You want to make sure that the entire ledger looks good. What does aesthetics mean? Aesthetics means a set of principles concerned with the nature and appreciation of beauty, especially in art. Do you think that if you went to KPMG and you asked them not to audit your business, you can get away with telling them that they're only focused on aesthetics? Really? And the crazy thing is that these are supposed to be some of the most well informed people in Caspa. They think that having a record of transactions like Bitcoin, having a record of every transaction, having the proof of work available for everyone to see, they think that that has to do with aesthetics. They think it has to do with the beauty of the blockchain. That just makes me think that that's crazy. I don't even know what to say about that. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. If you're trying to be pushed into something other than Bitcoin, try to ask these questions to those people. If they tell you don't worry about it, then you know that there's an issue. If you have a legitimate concern about Bitcoin for me, then I have no reason to not answer because I want to know what could make Bitcoin fail. If you say to me that Bitcoin's too slow, that's not a legitimate concern. Being slow doesn't change the functionality of Bitcoin, which is supposed to be a final settlement layer of money. It's supposed to have 10-minute blocks. If the block time were to change from 10 minutes to 5 minutes, the blockchain would double in size. That's the problem because you'd have more blocks. It would be more difficult to have a full archival Bitcoin node. They don't even call it that, it's just a full node. But it would be more difficult to have a full node with the entire blockchain on it. And that would mean that it's harder to detect fraud. It means that there are fewer people who can run a node and fewer people can actually confirm that there was no fraud. While with Caspa, the focus here seems to be to get people to not think about why you should have a full ledger. The point of cryptocurrencies is to have that full ledger. It's to confirm that cryptocurrencies weren't created out of thin air. And that's what gives Bitcoin so much power. That's why Bitcoin is so difficult to manipulate. Everybody on Earth can download a copy of this record, and everybody on Earth can confirm that the transactions that are being done are real. If somebody wanted to, let's say, create a new block, if some miner said, oh, the reward isn't enough, and instead of 3.125 Bitcoin as the block subsidy, let's say they go and say that they're going to get 3,135 Bitcoin. Everybody on Earth can see that that happened. Everybody on Earth can confirm that that happened. And because they can confirm that that happened, you know that they will reject that transaction because it's not supposed to be there. It's fraudulent. That's the point of Bitcoin.